Maya Rodriguez clutched her phone with trembling fingers as she read the latest message from Derek. The words made her stomach turn cold with fear. "I know where you are. You can't hide from me forever." She quickly deleted the text and looked around the small cafe where she had been hiding for the past hour. 3 weeks ago, Maya had finally found the courage to leave Derek after 2 years of controlling behavior that had slowly turned into something much darker. What started as him wanting to know where she was at all times had escalated into him tracking her phone, showing up at her work, and threatening anyone who tried to help her. The final straw came when he put his hands on her during an argument about her wanting to visit her sister. That night, while Derek was passed out drunk on their couch, Maya had grabbed a small bag with her most important belongings and disappeared into the night. She had been staying at different motels, paying with cash she had secretly saved over months. But Derek was persistent and smart. He knew all her friends, her family members, and the places she might go. Maya's hands shook as she sipped her coffee, constantly watching the door. She had dyed her long brown hair black and cut it short, hoping the change would help her blend in better. But she knew it was only a matter of time before Derek found her again. He had connections everywhere in the city, friends who worked as security guards, bartenders, and even a few police officers who owed him favors. The bell above the cafe door chimed, and Maya's heart nearly stopped. A tall man in an expensive black suit walked in, followed by 2 other men who looked like they meant business. The first man had dark hair, sharp features, and eyes that seemed to take in everything around him in one quick glance. There was something about the way he carried himself that made people automatically step aside. Maya tried to make herself smaller in her corner booth, but the man's eyes found hers across the room. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. His gaze was intense, but not threatening in the way Derek's had been. There was something else there, something that made her feel like he could see right through her attempt to hide. The man said something quietly to his companions, who immediately took seats near the front of the cafe while he approached her table. Maya's first instinct was to run, but something kept her frozen in place. "Mind if I sit?" he asked. His voice smooth but carrying an undertone of authority that suggested he wasn't really asking permission. Maya nodded, not trusting her voice to work properly. The man slid into the seat across from her, and she noticed his hands were perfectly manicured but bore small scars across the knuckles. "You look like someone who's running from something," he said simply, studying her face with those dark eyes. Maya's breath caught in her throat. Was this one of Derek's friends? Had he sent this man to find her? "I don't know what you mean," she whispered. The man smiled, but it wasn't cruel like Derek's smiles had become. "I've been watching you for the past 20 minutes. You've checked the door 16 times, your phone 8 times, and you're sitting in the corner with your back to the wall so you can see everyone who comes in. That's the behavior of someone who's afraid." Maya felt tears threatening to spill over. She was exhausted from weeks of running, from constantly looking over her shoulder, from sleeping with one eye open. "Please," she said quietly, "if someone sent you to find me, I'll pay you not to tell them where I am." The man's expression grew more serious. "No one sent me, but I recognize fear when I see it, and I recognize a woman in danger." He leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice. "What's your name?" "Maya," she answered before she could stop herself. "Maya, I'm Vincent Castellano, and I think you and I need to have a conversation about your situation." The name hit Maya like a cold wave. Everyone in the city had heard of Vincent Castellano, though most people only spoke about him in whispers. He was the head of one of the most powerful crime families in the state, a man who controlled businesses, politicians, and entire neighborhoods with a combination of fear and respect. "I don't want any trouble," Maya said quickly, starting to stand up. "Neither do I," Vincent replied calmly, gesturing for her to sit back down. But trouble seems to have already found you. The question is whether you want to keep running from it alone, or whether you want someone with the power to actually stop it. Maya sank back into her seat, her mind racing. What could the head of a crime family possibly want with her? I don't understand. Vincent's phone buzzed, and he glanced at it briefly before returning his attention to her. Tell me about whoever's chasing you. Maya hesitated. Everything she had ever heard about men like Vincent Castellano suggested that getting involved with them was dangerous. But everything she had experienced with Derek over the past 2 years had been dangerous too, and at least Vincent was offering help instead of threats. His name is Derek Morrison, she began slowly. We were together for 2 years. At first, he seemed perfect, charming, successful, attentive. But then he started wanting to control everything about my life. Where I went, who I talked to, what I wore. If I tried to disagree with him or do something he didn't like, he would get angry. Vincent listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker as she continued. 3 weeks ago, he hit me during an argument. That's when I knew I had to leave, but he won't let me go. He's been tracking me down everywhere I try to hide. He has friends all over the city who help him. I'm running out of money and I don't know what else to do. When she finished speaking, Vincent was quiet for a long moment. Maya could see him processing what she had told him, and something in his expression had changed. There was a cold anger there now, but she sensed it wasn't directed at her. This Derek Morrison, Vincent said finally. What does he do for work? He owns several nightclubs downtown, Club Essence, the Blue Moon, and Midnight Paradise. Vincent nodded slowly. I know those places, and I know who Derek Morrison thinks he is in this city. He pulled out his phone and sent a quick text message. Maya, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. Maya waited, her heart pounding. How far are you willing to go to make sure Derek Morrison never bothers you again? The question hung in the air between them. Maya thought about the past 3 weeks of fear. The way Derek had made her afraid to exist in her own life, the way he had isolated her from everyone she cared about. She thought about the look in his eyes when he hit her, and the promise in his voice when he said he would never let her go. As far as it takes, she said quietly but firmly. Vincent smiled, and this time there was something almost predatory in his expression. Good. Because I have a proposition for you, Maya. Something that will solve your Derek problem permanently, but it's going to require you to trust me completely. Maya stared at him, knowing that whatever he was about to propose would change her life forever. But looking into Vincent Castellano's eyes, she realized that her life had already been changed the moment Derek decided she belonged to him. Now she had a choice to make about who she wanted to be when the dust settled. I'm listening, she said. Vincent leaned back in his chair, studying her with approval. Derek Morrison thinks he runs things in this city because he owns a few nightclubs and has some corrupt cops in his pocket. But he's about to learn that there are levels to this game he never even knew existed. Maya felt a chill run down her spine, but it wasn't fear this time. It was something else entirely. What do you need me to do? She asked. Vincent's smile grew wider. For now, I need you to disappear completely. Not hiding in cheap motels where Derek can eventually find you, but truly disappear. I have a safe house where you'll stay while I handle the Derek situation. But Maya, his voice grew serious again. Once you accept my help, there's no going back to your old life. Are you prepared for that? Maya thought about her old life, about the job she had already lost because Derek kept showing up and making scenes, about the friends who had slowly stopped calling because Derek made them uncomfortable, about the family members who had started avoiding her because they didn't know how to help. My old life ended the moment I met Derek, she said. I'm ready for whatever comes next. Vincent stood up, extending his hand to her. Then let's go. Your new life starts right now. As Maya took his hand and stood up, she caught sight of her reflection in the cafe window. The scared, hunted woman who had been sitting there moments before was gone. In her place was someone who had just made a deal with one of the most dangerous men in the city, and she felt powerful for the first time in years. Outside, a black sedan waited with Vincent's two companions standing beside it. As they drove away from the cafe, Maya watched the familiar streets of her old life disappear behind them. She didn't know what Vincent Castellano had planned for Derek, and she wasn't entirely sure what her role in it would be. But for the first time in months, Maya wasn't afraid anymore, and that feeling was worth whatever price she might have to pay for it. The safe house wasn't what Maya had expected. Instead of some dark, hidden basement, Vincent brought her to a luxury penthouse apartment overlooking the city's harbor. The space was elegant and modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows and expensive furniture that looked like it belonged in a magazine. "This is where you'll stay," Vincent said, leading her through the spacious living room. "There are always 2 guards posted outside, and the building has the best security system money can buy. Derek Morrison couldn't get to you here even if he knew where you were." Maya walked to the window, looking out at the city lights twinkling below. "Why are you helping me?" she asked without turning around. "You don't even know me." Vincent was quiet for a moment, and when Maya turned to look at him, she saw something vulnerable in his expression that hadn't been there before. "My sister Isabella was in a situation similar to yours once," he said quietly. "By the time I found out how bad things were, it was too late to save her. She died in a car accident while trying to escape from her boyfriend. The police said the brakes failed, but I knew better." Maya felt her chest tighten with sympathy. "I'm sorry. I swore after Isabella's funeral that I would never let another woman suffer the way she did if I had the power to stop it." Vincent moved to stand beside her at the window. "When I saw you in that cafe today, terrified and alone, I saw her." They stood in comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching the city below. Maya felt safer than she had in months, but she also felt the weight of what accepting Vincent's help might mean. "What happens to Derek?" she asked finally. Vincent's expression hardened again. "Derek Morrison has been operating in my city for years without showing proper respect. He thinks owning a few nightclubs makes him untouchable. It's time he learned otherwise." "You're going to kill him." It wasn't a question. Vincent turned to face her directly. "Would that bother you?" Maya considered the question seriously. 2 years ago, the answer would have been an immediate yes. But 2 years ago, she hadn't lived through Derek's systematic destruction of her self-worth and independence. She hadn't felt his hands around her throat during arguments or seen the pleasure in his eyes when he made her cry. "No," she said honestly. "It wouldn't." Vincent nodded approvingly. "Derek has made a lot of enemies in this city. People he's cheated in business deals, women he's hurt, competitors he's threatened. When his time comes, there will be a long list of people with motives. You'll never be connected to it." Over the next few days, Maya began to understand the scope of Vincent's influence. The penthouse was constantly visited by various members of his organization, men and women who spoke to him with a combination of fear and genuine respect. She learned that Vincent controlled much more than illegal activities. He owned legitimate businesses, had relationships with city officials, and seemed to have his finger on the pulse of everything that happened in their city. Maya also began to understand Vincent himself. Despite his reputation, he was surprisingly gentle with her. He made sure she had everything she needed, brought her books when she mentioned being bored, and even arranged for a doctor to examine the lingering bruises on her ribs from Derek's last attack. "You don't have to stay locked up in here," Vincent told her on her 4th day in the penthouse. "My men can take you shopping, to restaurants, wherever you want to go. You're under my protection now, not my prisoner." "I don't want to go anywhere Derek might see me," Maya replied. "Not until this is finished." Vincent sat down beside her on the couch, closer than he had before. Maya, I need to tell you something about how this is going to work. Derek's elimination has to look natural or accidental. That means it might take some time to arrange properly. Maya nodded, understanding the implication. How long? Could be weeks. Could be a few months. Are you prepared to stay here that long? The question made Maya realize how much her situation had changed. A week ago, she would have said she just wanted Derek gone so she could go back to her normal life. But sitting in Vincent's penthouse, feeling truly safe for the first time in years, she wasn't sure she wanted her old life back anymore. Vincent, she said carefully, what happens to me after Derek is gone? His dark eyes studied her face intently. What do you want to happen? Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks. Over the past few days, she had become acutely aware of Vincent as a man, not just as her protector. He was handsome in a dangerous way, with an intensity that made her feel alive instead of afraid. When he looked at her, she felt like she was the only person in the room. I don't know, she admitted. I've spent so long just trying to survive that I haven't thought about what I actually want. Vincent reached out and gently tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear. The gesture was so tender that Maya felt her breath catch. You don't have to decide anything right now, he said softly. But Maya, I want you to know that you'll always have a place in my world if you want it. Before Maya could respond, Vincent's phone rang. He answered it quickly, his voice sharp and professional. Maya caught fragments of the conversation about security cameras, alibis, and timing. When he hung up, his expression was grim. Derek's been asking questions about you, Vincent said. He's offering money for information about where you might be hiding. My sources say he's getting desperate and sloppy. Maya felt a familiar chill of fear. What does that mean? It means he's about to make a mistake that will give me the opening I need. Vincent stood up, straightening his suit jacket. But it also means I need to accelerate my timeline. I'm going to end this tonight. Maya stood up too, sudden panic flooding through her. Tonight? Vincent, what if something goes wrong? What if he hurts you? Vincent smiled, and there was something almost fond in his expression. Are you worried about me, Maya? Yes, she said without hesitation. I am. Vincent stepped closer to her, close enough that she could smell his cologne and see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. Derek Morrison is a small-time bully who thinks he's dangerous because he can intimidate women and corrupt a few cops. I've been eliminating men far more dangerous than him since before you were old enough to vote. Maya reached out and grabbed his hand. Promise me you'll be careful. Vincent brought her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles gently. I promise you that Derek Morrison will never hurt you again, and I promise you that I'll come back to you tonight. After Vincent left, Maya found herself pacing the penthouse, unable to sit still or focus on anything. She tried reading, watching television, even attempting to cook something in the gourmet kitchen, but nothing could distract her from worrying about Vincent. Around midnight, her phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Maya's heart stopped when she read it. I know you're with Castellano. When I'm done with him, I'm coming for you. D. Maya's hand shook as she showed the message to Tony, one of Vincent's men who was stationed in the penthouse with her. Tony immediately made a phone call, speaking quickly in Italian before hanging up. Vincent's phone is off, Tony told her grimly. He's in the middle of handling the Derek situation. I can't reach him to warn him about the message. Maya felt sick with fear. Had Derek somehow discovered where she was hiding? Was Vincent walking into a trap? The next few hours were the longest of Maya's life. She sat by the window, staring out at the city and trying to convince herself that Vincent was fine, that he was too smart and too experienced to be caught off guard by someone like Derek. At 3 in the morning, Maya heard the elevator arriving at the penthouse level. Her heart pounded as footsteps approached the door. When it opened and Vincent walked in, alive and unhurt, Maya felt like she might collapse with relief. "It's done," Vincent said simply, but his expression was darker than she had ever seen it. Maya ran to him, throwing her arms around his neck without thinking. Vincent held her tightly, and she could feel some of the tension leave his body. "Derek sent me a message," Maya said against his shoulder. "He knew I was here with you." Vincent pulled back to look at her, his jaw clenched with anger. "He'll never send another message to anyone." Maya searched his face, seeing the truth there. Derek Morrison was dead, and she was finally free. But looking at Vincent, she realized that freedom meant something different now than it had a week ago. "What happens now?" she asked. Vincent's hands came up to frame her face, his thumbs brushing gently across her cheekbones. "Now you get to decide who you want to be, Maya. You can go back to your old life, start fresh somewhere new, or—" He paused, his dark eyes intense on hers. "You can stay with me." Maya felt like she was standing at the edge of a cliff, about to make a choice that would determine the rest of her life. But looking into Vincent's eyes, feeling the strength and protection he offered, she realized the choice had already been made somewhere in her heart. "What would staying with you mean?" she whispered. Vincent's smile was slow and dangerous and full of promise. "It would mean you'd never have to be afraid again. It would mean you'd be mine and I'd be yours. It would mean entering a world where we make our own rules." Maya thought about the woman she had been a week ago. Scared and running and powerless. That woman was gone forever, and in her place was someone stronger, someone who had looked danger in the eye and chosen to face it head on. "I want to stay," she said firmly. Vincent's response was immediate. He kissed her with a passion that made her knees weak, and Maya knew that whatever came next, she would face it as Vincent Castellanos' woman. The thought should have terrified her, but instead, it made her feel more powerful than she ever had in her life. 6 months later, Maya barely recognized the woman she had once been. Standing in front of the mirror in Vincent's master bedroom, she adjusted the diamond necklace he had given her for her birthday. The scared, broken woman who had hidden in that cafe was gone, replaced by someone who commanded respect wherever she went in the city. Maya had learned to navigate Vincent's world with surprising skill. She attended business dinners where deals worth millions were discussed over wine, managed charitable foundations that served as fronts for money laundering, and had even helped plan the elimination of 2 rivals who had threatened Vincent's territory. The violence no longer shocked her. It was simply part of the life she had chosen. "You look beautiful," Vincent said, coming up behind her and placing his hands on her shoulders. His reflection joined hers in the mirror, and Maya marveled at how right they looked together. "Thank you," she said, leaning back against his chest. "Are you nervous about tonight?" Tonight was the annual gathering of the 5 families that controlled organized crime on the East Coast. It would be Maya's first time attending as Vincent's official partner, a recognition of her status in his organization. "Nervous?" "No," Vincent replied, his arms tightening around her. "But I want you to understand something before we go. These men will try to test you tonight. They'll want to see if you're worthy of standing beside me." Maya turned in his arms to face him. "What kind of tests?" Vincent's expression was serious. "They might ask you about Derek Morrison's death. They might question your loyalty to me or to the family. They might even try to intimidate you or make you uncomfortable." Maya smiled, and there was steel in it now. "Let them try." Vincent kissed her forehead. "That's my girl. But Maya, there's something else I need to tell you before we leave." Maya waited, sensing the importance of whatever he was about to say. "There's been talk among some of the other families about our relationship. Some of them think I've grown soft because of you. They see protecting you from Derek as weakness instead of strength." Maya felt anger flare in her chest. What are they saying? They're saying that Vincent Castellano has gone soft for a woman, that I'm distracted and vulnerable. There's been talk about challenging my leadership. Maya stepped back, studying Vincent's face. And what do you think? Vincent's smile was dangerous. I think they're about to learn that the man who protects what he loves is the most dangerous man alive. The gathering was held in a private room at the city's most exclusive restaurant. Maya recognized several faces from newspapers and television, men who were officially successful businessmen, but unofficially controlled vast criminal empires. Their wives and girlfriends were draped in expensive jewelry and designer clothes, but Maya could see the calculation in their eyes as they sized up potential threats and allies. Vincent guided Maya through the room, introducing her to various players in their world. She smiled and made small talk, but she was acutely aware of the undercurrents of tension and rivalry that flowed beneath the polite conversation. "Vincent?" a gravelly voice called out, and Maya turned to see a man in his 60s approaching them. She recognized him as Carlo Benedetti, the head of one of the most powerful families in New York. "Carlo," Vincent replied, his voice carefully neutral. Carlo's eyes moved to Maya, looking her up and down in a way that made her skin crawl. "So this is the famous Maya Rodriguez, the woman who's captured our Vincent's heart." Maya extended her hand with a polite smile. "Mr. Benedetti, I've heard so much about you." Carlo took her hand but held it longer than necessary. "Have you? And what have you heard?" Maya felt Vincent tense beside her, but she kept her voice light and pleasant. "That you're a man who values loyalty above all else. I respect that." Carlo's eyes narrowed slightly. "Loyalty is earned, my dear, not given freely." "Of course," Maya agreed, "just as respect must be earned." The older man released her hand, studying her with newfound interest. "Vincent, you didn't mention your woman had such spirit." "Maya speaks for herself," Vincent replied smoothly. As the evening progressed, Maya found herself being tested in subtle and not-so-subtle ways. The wives of other family heads asked pointed questions about her background, her intentions with Vincent, and her understanding of their world. The men were less subtle, with some making inappropriate comments or deliberately invading her personal space to see how she would react. Maya handled each challenge with grace and steel, never backing down, but never losing her composure. She could see Vincent watching her with pride and something deeper, something that made her feel invincible. The real test came during dinner when Carlo Benedetti raised his wine glass and called for attention. "Friends," he announced, "tonight we have the pleasure of meeting Vincent's new partner, but I think we all have questions about her place in our world." The room fell silent, and Maya felt every eye turn to her. Vincent's hand found hers under the table, squeezing gently. "Maya," Carlo continued, "you've entered our world through unusual circumstances. Tell us, how do we know you won't run back to the authorities when things get difficult?" Maya stood up slowly, meeting Carlo's gaze directly. The room was so quiet she could hear her own heartbeat. "Mr. Benedetti," she said clearly, "6 months ago I was a different person. I was weak, afraid, and powerless. I had never hurt anyone, never broken the law, never even gotten a speeding ticket." She paused, letting her words sink in. "But that woman died the night Derek Morrison put his hands on me for the last time. The woman standing here tonight chose Vincent's world with full knowledge of what it meant. I've helped plan operations, manage finances, and eliminate threats. My hands aren't clean anymore, and I don't want them to be." Maya looked around the table, meeting each person's gaze. "You want to know if you can trust me? I can tell you exactly how Derek Morrison begged for his life. I can tell you which of his associates we eliminated to cover our tracks. I can tell you about the 3 other problems I've helped Vincent solve since then. Her voice grew harder. I didn't choose this life to play house with a dangerous man. I chose it because I discovered I have a talent for it. The silence stretched for several long moments. Then Carlo began to laugh, a deep, appreciative sound. "Vincent," he said, "I believe you found yourself a true partner." The rest of the evening passed smoothly, with Maya now fully accepted into their circle. But as they drove home, Vincent was unusually quiet. "What's wrong?" Maya asked. Vincent was silent for a moment, then pulled the car over to the side of the road. He turned to face her, his expression intense. "Maya, what you said tonight about having a talent for this life, how do you feel about that?" Maya considered the question seriously. "Honestly, it should probably scare me. The fact that I can plan someone's death over breakfast and then go shopping for shoes without feeling guilty. But it doesn't scare me. It makes me feel powerful." Vincent nodded slowly. "And you don't miss your old life? You don't regret choosing this path?" Maya reached out and took his hand. "Vincent, my old life was spent being afraid of a man who controlled me through fear and violence. My new life is spent being feared by men who try to control others." "Why would I regret that?" Vincent brought her hand to his lips, kissing her palm gently. "Because once you're fully in this world, Maya, there's no going back, ever. The woman you were before Derek, the innocent woman who worked a normal job and had normal dreams, she's gone forever." Maya smiled, and there was something almost predatory in it. "Good. I never want to be that vulnerable again." Vincent's response was to kiss her with a passion that made her forget they were sitting in a car on the side of a busy road. When they broke apart, his eyes were dark with desire and something deeper. "Maya," he said seriously, "I need to tell you something. Something I've never said to another woman." Maya's heart began to race. "What is it?" "I love you," Vincent said simply. "Not just because you chose to stay with me, not just because you've proven you can handle my world, but because you've become essential to who I am. You make me stronger, not weaker." Maya felt tears prick at her eyes. "I love you too, Vincent. More than I ever thought possible." Vincent reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Maya's breath caught as he opened it to reveal a stunning diamond ring. "Marry me," he said. "Not because you need my protection anymore, but because you want to rule this city beside me." Maya looked at the ring, then at Vincent's face, then at the city lights stretching out around them. 6 months ago, she had been running for her life, terrified and alone. Now she was being offered the chance to become the wife of one of the most powerful men on the East Coast. "Yes," she said without hesitation. As Vincent slipped the ring onto her finger, Maya thought about Derek Morrison and the woman she had been when she was with him. That woman would have been horrified by who Maya had become. She would have been terrified of Vincent, disgusted by the violence, shocked by the criminal activities. But that woman was gone, and Maya didn't mourn her. In her place was someone stronger, someone who could hold her own in a room full of killers and walk away feeling victorious. Someone who had learned that sometimes the only way to stop being a victim was to become something that victims feared. Vincent started the car and began driving toward their penthouse, toward their future together. As they drove through the city that they would soon rule as partners, Maya twisted her engagement ring around her finger and smiled. The scared woman hiding in that cafe was truly dead. In her place was Maya Castellano, and she was just getting started. "There's one more thing," Vincent said as they pulled into their building's garage. "What's that?" Vincent's smile was dark and full of promise. "Derek Morrison wasn't the only man in this city who thought he could treat women like property. I think it's time we started sending a message to others like him." Maya felt a thrill of excitement run through her. What did you have in mind? I was thinking we could make it our specialty, Vincent said. Vincent and Maya Castellano, the couple who makes sure certain types of men learn permanent lessons about respecting women. Maya laughed, and the sound was sharp and dangerous. I love it. When do we start? Vincent leaned over and kissed her again. And Maya knew that her transformation was complete. She had started this journey as a victim seeking protection, but she was ending it as a predator seeking prey. And she had never been happier in her life.